Hello, good evening, whoever is joining us on Facebook. This is our weekly Bible study, and we are working through the book of Job. Today we're going to be studying chapter 7, which is an ongoing response from Job to the consolation, the comfort, so forth, offered by his friend Eliphaz, who was not very comforting. And so this is Job's response to that, continued, or chapter 6 was part of Job's response, and now we're on to chapter 7 that we're going to be studying tonight. Like to say this is, just by way of introduction, this is a joint Bible study between River Life Chapel and Christ Life Inc., the ministry I'm involved with, and River Life is a church I'm part of, I come to. So if you are local to Western New York, not too far from Youngstown, and you don't have your own church, come on out and visit us Sunday mornings at 10:30, and come expecting, and you'll go home blessed. So, that said, on to the book of Job. And we're at 3474 Creek Road in Youngstown, in case anybody's interested in stopping out. All right, so we are in Job chapter 7, and so we'll start there and reading verses 1 through 5. Does anybody care to read verses 1 through 5?
Sure.
All right.
Does not man have hard service on earth? Are not his days like those of a hired man? Like a slave longing for the evening shadows, or a hired man waiting eagerly for his wages? So I have been allotted months of futility, and nights of misery have been assigned to me. When I lie down, I think, how long before I get up? The night drags on, and I toss till dawn. My body is clothed with worms and scabs. My skin is broken and festering.
All right. Pardon?
Now I'll eat my pizza.
There you go. Yeah. For those local who choose to come, we always have pizza. So Job may not be the most pleasant thing to set out your eating of the pizza, So if you can't quite stomach it while we're going through Job, just wrap it up and take it home. No, I don't see anybody quitting. All right. So verse 1. Job chapter 7, verse 1, Is there not an appointed time to man on earth? Are not his days also like the days of a hireling? The appointed time reference there is, it's interesting. Appointed time is a mass of persons by definition. That's kind of interesting. Especially organized for war, an army. Actually, this is not the appointed time. This is for the hard service part of it. Sorry, I misread my notes. So this is for the hard service that is spoken of, the days of a hireling. Some translations read hard service. Do we have anybody with hard service? Yeah. So this is why I like to get some different translations. I mean, I'm old school. I brought up with the King James. It's my favorite. I'm not a King James only person. So when I study, I like to have a lot of different translations. Some are more preferable to others. But you can always, with the tools available, you can always go back to the Hebrew and Greek and get the original definitions of the words God himself preserved. So the hard service is like a war of an army, by implication a campaign, military service. The Latin Vulgate translates it, the life of man is a warfare upon earth. Okay, so that was old, like the Latin Vulgate, how it translates it, of course, translated into English. So Job's afflictions are as painful as warfare. Difficulties in our lives are also like spiritual warfare. And really, that's what it is. I mean, when you come to Christ, you enlist in God's army. And armies are armies for a purpose. Basically, it's to do warfare, to protect and to do battle, And so as part of God's army, we're in spiritual warfare. Job's afflictions, he may not be totally aware of it, but it's spiritual warfare. And we see that right from the very beginning of the book of Job, where Satan is in the presence of God, and God brags about Job, and we've talked about that. And so, jumping to the end of the book of Job, the end of Job demonstrates victory over afflictions and spiritual success and growth. And we'll talk more about that when we get to chapter 42. If the Lord tarries long enough for us to get to chapter 42. If he doesn't, I won't be here, I don't expect this Bible study will go on, if the Lord comes back. That verse 1 is difficult times, and it's kind of showing and demonstrating Job's struggles, and it's a spiritual warfare. It's also very much a physical warfare for Job too, but it's a spiritual warfare. As a servant, verse 2, earnestly desires the shadow, and as a hireling looks for the reward of his work. So, like a servant longs for the shadow, at that time, in those days, time was measured by the length of the shadow. And so, like a slave also longs for evening, the servant or the slave is longing for the end of their work day. Well, similarly, and remember, Job is a poetic book. Similarly, Job is longing for his death. He's longing for the end of his trial, his suffering. We've seen already many times Job wishing for death, wishing he'd never been born. So again, he's saying, like a servant longs for the shadow. Well, when that shadow gets pretty long, it's the end of his workday. Well, Job doesn't have an end to his not workday, but agony. Yeah. Job doesn't have an end. So a slave, a servant or slave, probably used interchangeably. I didn't look that word up. But a servant, usually often the same as a slave, he's longing for the end of his day. Especially if he's a slave. I mean, driven to work hard, forced to work hard. When the children of Israel were slaves in Egypt, you got too much time on your hands. Don't give them any more straw, but don't reduce the amount of work. So you go get your own straw now and make the same amount of work. So slavery was not pleasant. You're working hard, but even a slave had a day's end, The shadow got long, and sooner or later it was time to quit. As a slave, probably later than sooner, but still, there was an end of your day. The masters knew you had to sleep sometime, So if they want continued productivity, they had to let up to some degree. Well, Job doesn't get that. He's wishing for it. He's longing for it. He would love to have death come to him because he hates what's going on. He absolutely hates it. And then the second part of that verse, as an hireling looks for the reward of his work. Job's longing for death. And again, probably the first book of the Bible written. Job himself had no scripture, to go on. This is one of the hints, I think, throughout Job, and he kind of goes back and forth with regards to the afterlife. Reward of his work, my little note is this may be a hint that Job believes there is life after death. He desires death to escape his afflictions, but if death were in fact a cessation of existence, what reward would he be looking for? I mean, if Job thought once he died, nothing, the word reward doesn't quite make sense there. I mean, the reward could be I'm out of pain. So it could have an application, and I'm not saying Job is definitely saying he believes, in an afterlife, but throughout the book of Job, there's different hints. There may be something more. There may not be something more. So he vacillates a little bit, he seems to. So here, the slave is looking for the end of his workday. The hireling is looking for his reward. Job is looking for death. The other two get theirs. He doesn't get his. At least, that's what he seems to be thinking here. Any thoughts on that before we go on to verse 3? All righty. So verse 3, Job 7:3. So I am made to possess months of vanity, and wearisome nights are appointed to me. Made to possess is literally an heir to. Normally, an inheritance is a positive thing, but Job's inheritance is vile and painful, enduring affliction. That's the way he's looking at it. I got an inheritance. You don't want it. Vile, painful, enduring affliction. So Job's got an inheritance I'm made to possess. And it's interesting, made to possess. Obviously, this is not an inheritance Job wants. So he's made to possess this inheritance. And the use of the word months in here, possibly a hint at the duration of his affliction to this point. Remember, it's a poetic book. That doesn't necessarily mean that, he's endured months already. It may be a poetic expression representing a long period of time. But in either case, it's definitely a clear hint this hasn't been an overnight experience. He's made to possess months of this affliction. And so possibly it's a literal application that he's been, we know his friend sat with him for 7 days in silence. And we don't know how long before that it took for them to gather and come. We don't know how long it took where they lived and, how long it took for them to get word of Job. Months could be realistic, but suffice it to say it was a lengthy period of time that, Job didn't want any part of. He was forced to possess it. Verse 4, when I lie down, I say, when shall I arise and the night be gone? And I am full of tossings to and fro unto the dawning of the day. When I lie down, I certainly don't say, oh, I can't wait for night to be over. Unless it's the day before vacation. Job was not on vacation. So, normally when we lay down to go to sleep, we're not anxiously awaiting the alarm.
Or payday.
Maybe payday. I'm not sure with direct deposit if I'm still anxiously awaiting the alarm to go off. But so Job is like, when I lay down, I say, when shall I arise and when will night be gone? This is how bad this is. Even night, even sleep is of no value to Job. He hardly gets any sleep. We see him mention this off and on throughout the book. His pain, his anguish is not diminished at nighttime. He's longing for morning. I mean, if I wake up and it's an hour before the alarm goes off, I'm rejoicing. If it's 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, I got to get up soon. But if it's an hour, it's, oh, thank you, Jesus, another hour, But that's not Job. Job's like, I lay down, when's this night going to be over? Okay? And his night it's fitful. I'm full of tossings to and fro until the dawning of the day. So night's as bad as day. Maybe worse. At least in the daytime, he had his friends with him. I guess night might be better with those guys. I'm not, Of course, I'm jumping ahead. It's trying to stay ahead of the game, so I started preparing for chapter 8 for next week, and that's the second one of Job's friends, Bildad. They don't get any better. So we'll save that for next week. But so Job is like, let me see what my notes, that's just off the top of my head. Let's see what the notes that I wrote down here say. Oh, pretty straightforward. Sleep offers no relief, restlessness, tossing and turning and pain. So that's his nights.
The thing is, prolonged bouts of not sleeping, if it turns into insomnia, that really affects your health, and it really can bring on depression and stuff like that. And a little further on in the chapter, he talks about the terrifying dreams and stuff that he has, but let alone depression, that really, it's important to get, healthy sleep.
Absolutely. So there you go. Not only is he suffering with the boils, now he's suffering from sleep deprivation. It certainly seems Job's got a little touch of depression going on, for sure. Totally understandably. And then with the help of his friends, things just get worse. So, the man's getting it on every side. Last week we talked about God's arrows being in him. He's getting it. He is getting it. So, verse 5. Everyone's done with the pizza? My flesh, verse 5, my flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. My skin is broken and become loathsome. This is pretty gross. And it's a horrible image of the terror of these boils. One of the commentaries and definitions I looked up, it said, in elephantiasis, maggots breed in the sores. And so this, even though it's poetic, this quite probably is literally happening to him. My flesh is clothed with worms. And it's what I got when I was looking at this, it's kind of like roadkill. Now, roadkill is dead. Job is not. and maggots are all over roadkill. Well, Job is in such a way that it says my flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. His body is probably rotting. I mean, that's where maggots grow, is in rotting things. And so if somebody, somebody wants to look up Acts 12:23, and somebody else wants to look up Isaiah 14:11, we'll see a couple of other examples from the scripture along these lines.
The Acts 23.
Acts 12:23.
Yep.
All right, go ahead and read that.
Immediately, because Herod did not give praise to God, an angel of the Lord struck him down, and he was eaten by worms and died.
All righty. So that's the story of Herod. He's speaking, and the crowds are yelling, "It's a voice of a god!" And because he didn't repent and he didn't, correct the people, he received that adulation. He was struck dead, boom, fell over, and worms, ate him up. And Isaiah 14:11. All right.
Your pomp is brought down to Sheol, and the sound of your stringed instruments. The maggot is spread under you, and worms cover you. Okay,
so that many believe prophetic of Satan, Lucifer, and so on and so forth. But there again, because of his arrogance, bam, he's slapped down, and maggots. Well, Job says, my flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. And so his body is quite possibly literally decaying and rotting, even though he's alive. So kind of the dead deer on the side of the road has no idea what's happening to it. Job does. When you really get into this book, it's unimaginable what this guy is going through. It's unimaginable. Anyhow.
Does he have any idea, without the scriptures, that there actually is a Satan?
Probably. Oral tradition, he would have probably been aware of the story of the Garden of Eden and the serpent.
But he doesn't seem to put all these things that are happening to him on.
Yeah, he doesn't give Satan any credit. God's in charge. He knows. He's probably aware of Satan. How much, I'm not sure. I was just thinking as we talked, as we were talking, the serpent, I don't think, is identified as Satan until in the New Testament. So, I know in Revelation it speaks of the serpent, that dragon, Satan, whatever. So in Genesis, I wasn't prepared for that question, but I don't think the serpent is identified in Genesis as Satan. So Job who knows what he was aware of? The talking serpent? Yeah, probably aware of that. Who that guy was, if he's still around, I don't know. By the end, Job knows because, someone wrote the book, I tend to think Job did, but that's for another story. But so I would say there's some level of awareness, but God's in charge, and he knows that, and he's kind of angry about it as he goes along because, but he never curses God. He gets angry at God, and we'll see.
I think he had a sense of an evil force or evil force.
Yeah, for sure. And so with Eliphaz, we talked about one of his sources of truth was some spirit that spoke to him. And we said that that spirit was an evil spirit because he contradicted God, and that's verified at the end of the book. So, yeah, there definitely was a sense of good and evil, and probably Job maybe knew Eliphaz's spirit was evil, the one that came to him. So anyhow, we don't really know the depth of it, but yeah, I would say there was some awareness of that. Okay, so that's verses 1 through 5. Basically, life is hard and unsatisfying, and I have no hope. I mean, that's where it's at. Anybody want to read verses 6 through 7, where basically my little subtitle is Life is futile and absolutely meaningless. So 6 through 10. Did I say 7? 6 through 10. Anybody want to read Job 6 through 10?
I'll read it.
All right.
My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and are spent without hope. Oh, remember that my life is a breath. My eye will never again see good. The eye of him who sees me will see me no more. While your eyes are upon me, I shall no longer be. As the cloud disappears and vanishes away, so he who goes down to the grave does not come up. He shall never return to his house, nor shall his place know him anymore.
All right, so Job 7:6, my days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle and are spent without hope. At this point, Job is not saying, oh my, how time flies. That's not what he's saying here. I mean, when you first read it, my days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle. I didn't look up a weaver's shuttle. I imagine it's moving pretty quick based on this, but
It's a little part where the thread, it's like a spool that they shoot in between all the different threads of the weave.
okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
it's tossed and it goes fast.
okay, so
Nice going on there.
there you go. There you go. This is what this is why it's good to have
You
people
can tell you're
in,
a sewer.
good to have people in house.
What a show off.
Good to have people in house like that to give us some insight. But basically, it's moving quick. Job is not saying, "Oh my, how time flies." This is not what he's saying. Basically, it seems that he's my little note here. More so, his life overall is nothing but a meaningless blur. That's kind of what he's saying. Now, so is that even true? No. Job was the best in all the world, God said. He was wealthy and prosperous and, godly. But in the depths of despair, he's looking back and all he sees is the recent past. 10 dead kids, no wealth, no possessions, no health, sleepless nights, anguish, nothing but a meaningless blur. So that's kind of what he's saying with that comment. And again, Job states that basically there is no hope of any recovery or healing for him. Again, Job's not right in that. In Christ, there's always hope. But again, Job didn't have any scripture, and he's going based on what he's going through. I mean, we just saw, basically, he's alive and decaying and rotting at the same time. That's a pretty hope.
Hasn't been sent yet either.
What?
The Holy Spirit, the Comforter, has not been sent.
Yep. So he's doing the best he can, and God validates that at the beginning and at the end. That's not to say 100% everything Job said is true. At the end, God says to his friends, "You have not spoken that which is right about me, as my servant Job has." So it's what's said about God And throughout the book, Job says basically repeatedly, God's in control. He doesn't understand a lot of it. He makes accusations out of that control. But God is God, and that's that. So Eliphaz, Job's saying there is no hope of any recovery. Eliphaz said if Job listened to him, he will recover. Job knows that Eliphaz's instructions will not result in recovery. Eliphaz's instructions came to him partially through some spirit. So Job knew listening to Eliphaz wasn't going to work. He also believed there was no hope. So that's 6. 7, oh, remember that my life is wind, mine eyes shall no more see good. My life is wind, breath. Somebody, to save time, James 4:14 says, what is your life but a vapor? All right, nothing new under the sun. God hasn't changed. Job's just, saying basically the same thing what James says. My life is wind, it's breath, it's a vapor. Remember that my life is wind, mine eyes shall no more see good. So Job's life is nothing compared to God. God's eternal. His life is here and here today, gone tomorrow. And Job despairs again of any hope of being restored to have any good in his life. My eyes shall not see good. Spoiler alert, Job's wrong on that. So this is one of those things where Job's wrong. He didn't, that's not a commentary on God. But for my life, I'm not going to see any more good. He didn't say God's not good. All right, any thoughts on that before we move on to verse 8?
Bob, is he talking about how fast things are moving? Because the Weaver shuttle moves fast, and then you take a breath, and it's like...
Well, yes and no. Part of it is this life passes quickly.
Right.
But the other part is like his days and nights, they just go on and on and on. And so the misery and anguish is forever. But life in general, just gone, He's wishing his was gone. So it's both. It's actually both. Nights go on forever. He can't wait for morning, so. But actually, you kind of have both things happening here. Okay, verse 8. The eye of him that hath seen me shall see me no more. Thine eyes are upon me, and I am not. That was King James. Somebody want to read verse 8 in some other translation?
I can.
All right.
Just as clouds that come and go, people are put in the grave, never to rise again.
Is that 7, 8?
Oh, I'm sorry, 7, 9.
I said 9 first, and then I went to 8.
Okay. Those who see me now will never see me again. You watch me for a while, but then I am gone.
All right, so just a couple different translations. When I looked at, Job seems to be referring to God watching him specifically, and then sees Job no more. Perhaps he's comparing his former state with his current state. While God watches, Job says he'll be gone. So that watching could be a good thing, like a protective, God's watching over you. At this point, God's watching Job, and Job's aware, he knows God's there, and he doesn't like it. we'll see a little bit later, I think, in this chapter. He's like, really? Stop watching me. More or less as a paraphrase. But so he could be thinking of his former state versus his current state. He could be thinking of, and a little bit we see him like, to stop watching. I wish you would just stop, kind of thing. While God watches, let's see my note. While God watches, Job says he will be gone. Possibly Job expects to die soon, or Job cannot stand in God's presence. While I talk, somebody look up Psalm 104:32. So Job's feeling death. I mean, he's wishing for it. And I mean, I guess if you're covered with worms, as Job, we already read, you're probably, Job was not a young man. He was an older person. I'm sure he saw the results of a dying carcass. And now that's happening to him while he's alive. He's probably seeing death coming. So God's watching, and I'm going to die. At some point, he's hoping for it. At some point, he's expecting it. And he could be referring, God's watching, and I'll be gone soon. Or it could be, God just can't stand in Job's presence and the watchful eye of God. So Psalm 104, verse 32, who's got that?
Verse 32?
Yep.
That would be, he who looks at the earth and it trembles, who touches the mountain and they smoke.
All right, so that's being in the presence of God, You're in the presence of God. Read it again.
He who looks at the earth and it trembles, who touches the mountain and they smoke.
All right, so God looks at the earth and it trembles. He touches the mountain and it's up in smoke. And we know from the children of Israel, God spoke from the mountain and they said, Moses, you're the man. Don't let God talk to us again, lest we die. And, both the Old and New Testament, it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of a living God. So Job could be making poetic commentary of like, this is horrifying being in the presence of God. It's terrifying. And of course, what he's going through is terrifying in and of itself.
Is he talking about earthquakes and volcanoes?
Job?
The passage is just...
Yeah, that's another poetic kind of...
the earth trembles like earthquakes.
Yeah, it could be. It's poetic language, basically. It's just saying God's awesome and nothing stands in his presence.
Right, yeah, he's in control.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, every time the resurrected Jesus or God, manifesting himself as a person, people fall on their faces dead. They can't stand in his presence, even in angels. And then the angel says, get up, I'm just a servant like you. So it's a commentary on how unbelievably, unspeakably awesome God is.
Omnipotent.
Yeah, omnipotent, yeah. All powerful. So God is all powerful. Where does Satan's power come from? Just a thought. If God has all power, Satan's power is temporarily on loan to him by God, serving God's purposes. Satan's not a good thing, but God uses him. Like I said before, Martin Luther called Satan God's ape on a chain. So, God's in control. Satan's got nothing. He's got nothing. So anyhow, onward. Let's see, we just did Job 7, verse 8. Verse 9, as the cloud is consumed and vanishes away, so he that goes down to the grave shall come up no more. Again, a hint. This is Job vacillating a little bit. Again, a hint that Job kind of thinks death maybe is the end of it. We've seen that previously in some of his commentary. And so he's like, okay, just like the cloud is consumed and vanishes away. Well, he that goes to the grave doesn't come up again. And Job's very happy with that thought because he's looking forward to the grave because he doesn't like life right now. And he's expecting maybe the grave's the end of it. So we just saw a little bit before where death may have a reward, and now we're just seeing, you go to the grave, you don't come up again. So just in this one chapter, we see a little bit of, uncertainty about the afterlife. Kind of interesting. And let's see. All right. So it's either, we mentioned all that. We don't have to dwell on that any further. Verse 10 is a continuance of the thought in verse 9. He shall return no more to his house, neither shall his place know him anymore. Culturally at the time, one's land was beloved, and it was a sign of success. But after death, you never go back to your land, and no one remembers you. Wrong, Job. Everyone here remembers Job because we're all talking about him. Obviously, we remember him. So another point where Job, in his anguish, it's just not right, No one remembers you anymore. So amassing land and wealth is basically land and wealth is utterly meaningless when you're gone. And I have some thoughts from Luke 12, 16 through 20, which is the rich man prospering. He says, I'm going to tear down my barns and build bigger ones. What am I going to do with all this stuff? I got to tear down my barns and build bigger ones. I'm not sure the logic in that. I would, if I had that kind of wealth, I'd just build extra barns and keep the ones up that I already had. But, I guess because I'm not a rich man, I don't think like that. Just saying. As I'm thinking, there's a house that at times we've gone by on the way to my wife's family, and it was a beautiful house. She knows what I'm talking about. And they tore it down and built a huge mansion. I'm like, whoa, really? If you got that kind of money, why didn't you just buy another plot of land, sell the beautiful house, and build your mansion on? Okay, anyhow, we're off, Joe. All righty then. So the rich man building his barns, you fool, today your soul shall be required of you. And then whose is it going to be? Well, basically that's what Job's kind of saying here. You won't go back to your house, and no one's going to remember you. So 11 through 16, Job complains to God. Does anybody want to read 11 through Job 7, 11 through 16?
I'll read it.
Okay.
Therefore I will not keep silent. I will speak out in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I the sea or the monster of the deep that you put me under guard? When I think my bed will comfort me and my couch will ease my complaint, even then you frighten me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that I prefer strangling and death rather than this body of mine. I despise my life. I would not live forever. Let me alone. My days have no meaning. Is that how much you
Yep, that's it. So, therefore I will not refrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. So, as bad as things are, Job says, he's going to vent. He's going to vent. And all of his venting is about his circumstances of life. And it kind of reminds me, Job, and we said it early on, Job is almost always speaking to God, whereas the other guys try to speak for God. And they didn't even listen to God, but they try to speak for God. So Job is speaking to God primarily, and it kind of reminds me of, in the New Testament, different times where, different times where one of the disciples, only one of them, went and asked Jesus. I think of, doubting Thomas. Lord, we don't know where you're going. Where are you going? Tell us. Now, there was 11 other guys thinking that. But only one of them had the guts to speak it. God's got big shoulders. He can handle our complaints. He can handle our accusations. He can handle anything we can throw at him. But, we want to do it properly. But he can handle that too. So Job's speaking his mind here, because in his mind, what's he got to lose? Things can't get any worse. And that's probably true. They can't get any worse because we know Satan was given free rein to do anything and everything he wanted to Job except kill him. So we know Job's basically got the worst of the worst. And in Job's mind, death would be preferable. So there's nothing worse that could happen to him. He's going to speak, and he's kind of rebuking Eliphaz, like, you haven't even considered why I'm saying the things I'm saying. Come on, man, get a life. This is for real. So he's going to speak. And then he says, am I a sea or a whale, or most translations say sea monster, that you set a watch over me? Job's asking if he's somehow dangerous, that God needs to guard him. And a sea or a sea monster, the sea is often poetic for a violent rebel against God. If somebody wants to look up Jeremiah 5:22, we'll see an example of that. Whoever gets it first can just go for it.
Should you not fear me, declares the Lord? Should you not tremble in my presence? I made the sand a boundary for the sea, an everlasting barrier it cannot cross. The waves may roll, but they cannot prevail. They may roar, but they cannot cross it. So the sea is portrayed in poetic kind of reference. It's portrayed as a rebel against God. I put the sand there, and it's got violent waves, but it ain't going any further than what I say. And it's actually interesting because when God comes on the picture in Job, that's one of the things God asked Job. I love when God shows up, he's so sarcastic. He is. Job, since you're old and know all things, tell me, when I set the boundaries of the sea and said to thy proud waves, this far you shall go and no further. Well, where were you when I did that, since you know all things? Anyhow, we'll save that for later. But the sea and sea monsters, of course, are dangerous, And obviously, when you see in the New Testament, the fishermen, ardent navigators of the sea, what are they doing? Whining and crying and complaining every time you see it in the New Testament when there's waves.
Don't you care that we're dying? You know, wake up. Come on. I mean, so the sea is portrayed as, so Job's like, what am I? Am I the sea, or am I a sea monster that you got to watch me and hedge me in and guard me? So a sea monster, again, a dangerous animal needing to be restrained. We won't, for time's sake, Isaiah 27:1 refers to similar to that. So in verse 13, Job seeks comfort and respite from his complaints and anguish via sleep. But he's tormented with visions and dreams. He needed rest, but was afraid to close his eyes. So that's 13 and 14. When I say, my bed shall comfort me, my couch shall ease my complaint, then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions. So we saw before that he goes to bed and like, when's this night going to end? You know? And now, boy, if I could just sleep, I'll get a little rest.
Yeah.
Get a little rest. And when he can't not sleep, his eyes close, and he's terrified by dreams and visions. He's tormented by dreams and visions. So scare is to break down. I looked up some definitions. Scare is to break down either literally by violence or figuratively by confusion and fear. Terrify is to terrify, startle, fall upon, dismay, be overtaken by sudden terror. So basically, when Job's asleep, he's broken down over time and sudden terror by those definitions. We don't really have time, but kind of consider just something to ponder. When Eliphaz had a spirit show up, he was terrified, but then he listened to it. Job has a spirit of, he gets dreams and visions, and he accuses God of them, and he's terrified. But Eliphaz is listening to this spirit, and Job is, I just want sleep, you know. A little bit difference in how they handled it. Job didn't say, oh, give me some wisdom. He's like, just let me sleep. All right.
Because of all the pain he's in?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, think about it when we're sick, just sick, you know. Sleep is the best thing for you because you're not experiencing the sickness when you're asleep, you know. That's why NyQuil makes so much money. Knock you out, you know.
Well,
nice little chicken.
Sleep, but it's also sleep deprivation. It plays a serious mental point with you. So not only is he tormented physically, but he's tormented mentally from a lack of sleep.
Yeah.
I had a guy in our previous church. His wife said feels like he's having a heart attack. He's really stressed out. And then when she started to explain to me what was going on, and I said, when's the last time he slept? She goes, he's not sleeping. It's been over a week. I said, whatever he's got to do, take NyQuil, whatever, take Benadryl. Just let him get a good night's sleep and see how his outlook is in the morning. Because stress at work and everything is a very important position. Sure enough, she came back to me the following week. She goes, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I said, anything you're going through, a lack of sleep will compound it.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Yep.
Things you could think it's the worst thing in the world, but it's really not. You're just tired.
Yeah.
So that's what Job's going through.
Oh, absolutely.
When we were talking about the worms and all that, I just started going online. What are they talking? I went into the commentaries. What are they talking about? So they're talking about what they feel it is. The different commentators and theologians say it was elephantiasis and boils.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know what elephantiasis is. I experienced it in India big time. And then on top of it, boils.
Yeah, not good.
And on top of that, insomnia.
On top of it, insomnia.
Yep. And
Oh my gosh. And he didn't commit suicide.
And probably depression. I mean,
Yeah,
with
from the lack of sleep
sleep,
and
no
pain.
doubt.
And losing his family. And
Losing his family and with friends like those. All right, I better let off on his friends a little. So
Even when I was in rehab, after being in the hospital and all the back and forth, I had not really been sleeping for all that duration. And it was because also the television was on all the time. And I did not want it, but I was with roommates and they would have it on, let alone what they listened to was horrendous. But I could not sleep. And that thing about feeling like you're going to start having a heart attack, I was feeling concerned. You know, something is escalating. This certainly is not a conducive place for recovery, but I was concerned about my heart and what was. But I cried out to the Lord, and He took care of it from there.
yeah, so I mean, I don't think we can overemphasize what this man's going through.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even know. I doubt there's words to even overemphasize it.
Yeah.
So 15.
I'm sorry, and the worms were both parasites and maggots.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at all. So, serious suffering. So verse 15, so that my soul chooses strangling and death rather than my life. 16, I loathe it. I would not live always. Let me alone, for my days are vanity. So basically, Job considers God to be his tormentor and would prefer death, even by strangulation, to life. Job despises his life. It feels like he's living forever. I mean, earlier in this chapter, the word months was used and said that was poetic, but may indicate some kind of a time frame. But anyhow, it was a long period of time. Well, to Job, it feels like he's living forever. And this, I referenced earlier, this is where he asks God to leave him alone. Basically, just let me alone for the few days I got left. You know. Somebody just turn back a couple pages to Job 2, verse 10. And we're going to compare Job 2:10 with 7:15 and 16, what we just read. Somebody read 2:10.
I got it here.
Okay.
But he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God? And shall we not accept adversity? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips.
Okay. So in Job 2:10, Job defends God against the foolish counsel of his wife. Job defends God and his right to do whatever he wants to do. Job acknowledges God is in ultimate control. Job 7:15 through 16. Job accuses God of afflicting him and tells God what to do. Stop, leave me alone. Pretty clear that, suffering is really a trial of one's character. And again, we can't overemphasize what he's going through. But look at the differences in what he said when it first came on him compared to now, which we don't know. The term months was used. We don't know how long, but it's been some period of time.
It's taken its toll.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
And that word strangle, right?
Yeah.
It's not suicide because somebody's
No.
got to strangle you.
Yeah, yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
has to come and strangle you. You can't
Yeah.
just strangle yourself.
yeah.
Somebody's got to inflict strangling on you.
I would assume that's similar to being impossible to hold your breath till you die.
Yeah,
I imagine
fear.
strangling yourself would be impossible, like holding your breath till you die, because
The fear starts
Even-
kicking in your
well,
Okay, I get it.
fear kicks in. But even if you were successful in strangling
You
yourself,
pass out and start
you pass
breathing
out
again.
before you die. So you can't kill yourself by strangulation, at least not with your hands. I guess you could hang yourself, but.
It's a strangling, not hanging.
Yeah, true. So,
And that would be suicide. So
yeah, no, Job never considers suicide. All right, let's try to stay on track with things. So let me just read my notes, and we'll see if we can wrap up Job chapter 7. I'll just read my notes for the end of the chapter, and then whatever comments, and we can wrap it up. So verse 17, this section, Job asks God, have I sinned? How? Verse 17, what is man? Why are you, God, focusing so much attention on me, Job? And, I compare this verse 17 with Psalm 8:4. What is man that thou art mindful of him? Job says this in an accusatory manner. David says it in an awestruck manner. Job is indicating that God's attention is unwanted. David is indicating that God's attention is unbelievable. Wow, you're watching me? What is man that you even care? And Job's like, why are you watching me? Leave me alone, he just said in the previous verse. So one of the thoughts that I had along with that is maybe, in part because of Job, David was able to have a different attitude. Maybe David learned from Job. I'm just postulating that, the end result, which Job didn't know yet at this point. Verse 18, comparing it with Lamentations 22 through 24, Job 7:18 says, and that thou shouldst visit him every morning and try him every moment. And Lamentations speak, this is a horrible situation in Lamentations. I mean, Jerusalem is overthrown, the kingdom of Judah is fallen. It's basically the end. I mean, by sight, it's the end of God's promises because there is no more Israel. So Lamentations is a horrible situation. But in the midst of Lamentations, pretty much right in the middle, it says, your mercies are new every morning. And Job's like, why are you visiting me daily? So Job again says it in an accusatory manner. God visits me daily to test and try. Jeremiah says it in an awestruck manner. Even in the light of all this, God's mercies are new daily. So maybe Jeremiah learned something from Job. Just speculating. We don't know. Verse 19. How long will you not depart from me? Basically, will you never leave me alone? Not even long enough for me to swallow spit? Basically, that's what it says there. Nor let me alone till I swallow down my spittle. You're hounding me all the time. I can't even swallow. Of course, it may also be a commentary on his swallowing being problematic too. I mean, it's poetic, but, poetry has to have some basis, So eating has been a problem, sleeping's been a problem, agony all the time's a problem. Probably swallowing is a problem too, So Job's essentially begging for a tiny respite. And then in Job 7:20, I have sinned. If I have sinned, some translations will say, if I sin, what shall I do unto you? So basically, Job's saying, if I sin, how does that harm you? You know? What have I done to you? Job can't understand why he is God's target. And again, comparing Job 7:20 with earlier in Job, where, he makes Job 1, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job 2, similar commentary. And here he's saying, if I've sinned, what have I done to you? You preserver of men, why have you set your mark against me so I am a burden? So Job says, even if he sins, how does that impact God? God says, there's no one as righteous as Job in all the world. So Job says, why has God made me a target of his anger? God brags to Satan about Job. God brags to Satan about how great Job is and allows Satan to target Job to show God's glory. All right? Job thinks God's making him a target. God's allowing Satan to target him so that God's glorified. Job wonders why he's a burden to God and to himself. God knows Job is a testimony to God and his glory. So there's lots we can learn from this, and I want to wrap it up. I got one more verse. So lots we can learn from all of this, but basically we can summarize it to say God's understanding is the right one. What we think's going on is not right. God is always right. All right, so in verse 21, why do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I shall sleep in the dust, and thou shalt seek me in the morning, but I shall not be. Job is starting to believe the lies of Eliphaz. He says, why won't you pardon my transgressions? Well, Eliphaz is saying, it's your fault, Job. You sinned, brought this on yourself. And Job's like, well, why won't you pardon my transgressions? He's starting to believe Eliphaz's lies. And we should not be surprised. This is a tactic that's still practiced and taught in some areas today. Vladimir Lenin, possibly, I've seen this statement attributed to different people, but one was Lenin, said, a lie told often enough becomes the truth. Mm-hmm. So the people I've seen this statement attributed to are all evil, vile people, because good people don't promote lies. All right? Because we know that all liars have their part in the lake of fire, so we don't promote that. But so whoever it was that said it, basically Eliphaz and his friends are practicing it whether they know it or not. They know it at the end of the book. Oh yeah. God makes that clear. Job longs for death and feels it so close that if God doesn't help him, he will lie down at night and be dead in the morning. And this is one of the passages that's a pessimistic view of the afterlife expressed by Job. Again, we see him wavering. And that's it for the chapter. Alrighty. The end, we rushed a little bit, but I think we got enough to kind of go and work on it. So till next week, folks, thanks for tuning in. And Lord willing, we'll see you next week. Bye.